welcome to another video. Today's is extra exciting because we are starting into a brand new year and I have such high hopes for this year, for my reading year, because last year was pretty mediocre. I didn't read a lot of books that I loved, but this year I'm hoping to plan a little bit better, be a little bit more picky, read a bunch of books that are on my shelf that I've been dying to get to. This year is going to be my year. I'm very confident in that, especially because I'm hoping to get back to a lot of fantasy reading, which is what I read a lot of, or used to until last year. I read a lot of contemporary and thrillers last year, and I think that's why I had such mixed reviews and feelings as far as last year's reading. So I'm looking forward to starting a brand new year, starting fresh with a clean slate, and I have a really bomb stack of books here that I cannot wait to share with you guys. So without further rambling, let's just go ahead and dive into these. But before we do, I am hoping to have my 22 books I want to read in 2022 out before I put this video up. But in case not, I picked 22 books on the top of my list that I want to get to this year, and I put all of the titles in this hat. And so each month I'm going to be picking out one of these. They're black, they're folded twice over. I cannot see what book is in these. I'm actually going to be doing wrap-ups again this year, so you all can yell at me or keep me accountable when I don't read these books in my wrap-ups. But to make this a little bit more relaxed and not force myself to read books is I get 2 chances. So if I pick one and the first one I'm just not on board with, not in the mood for it, I do have the opportunity to pick a second one, but that does not mean I get to choose from both of them. That means I have to read the second one that I pick. So a little bit of a game there, but I think we're gonna go ahead and start out the TBR with picking one of these. Watch me fail at the very first month that I do this. Okay, we're just gonna go with this one. Oh no. Okay, let me go get the book. So I drew from the hat The Humans by Matt Haig, which I am actually very excited that I chose this one because I started listening to it on audio and I loved it. One of my big goals this year is to get more into audiobooks and reading it physically. It really just enhances the reading experience for me. Plus, if I'm busy or doing house chores, I can continue reading and not have to stop by listening to audiobooks. So I'm actually really pumped for this. And I think I'm actually gonna read this. I think it's gonna be doable. So I don't think I'm going to pick a second guy out of this hat because I'm pretty satisfied with my first choice. If you guys know nothing about this book, it is kind of like a sci-fi novel where we have this alien that gets dropped on the planet Earth and is trying to figure out how humans tick and how we work. And the humor is absolutely phenomenal. I don't know what to expect from this, to be honest with you. I just know it's kind of like a dark comedy on life. So if it's anything like The Midnight Library, which I loved, I think I'm really gonna like this. And I just really adore his writing. Very easy to get through, and yeah, I don't think I'm gonna have an issue getting through this one, especially because it's 250, not even 300 pages. So I have quite a few buddy reads this month. I have 3 different buddy reads, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about those first. But the first one I don't actually own yet. It's Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. If you don't know, the movie for this is gonna be released February 11th, and I'm really hoping to go see that. The trailer looks phenomenal, so well done. I loved the way they portrayed the Orient Express, and I think this is going to be a even higher stakes book. This one takes place on a cruise where we have this beautiful young stylish girl named Lynette who gets shot, and basically it's just a murder mystery like a lot of her other books. I think I'm really gonna like the setting to this one though, because there's something about that freaky, scary, isolated feeling of being surrounded by nothing but deep waters and ocean. This one is just gonna have such a interesting, unique vibe, and my friend Lauren is super into Agatha Christie as well. I've only read one other book of hers, so I am very stoked to chat about this one. I'm confident that this is gonna be one that I enjoy. I've been trying to read more of her books, but I just needed that extra push and motivation to get to another one, and hopefully chatting with Lauren will help me do that. My next buddy read is going to be with Keisha and Elizabeth, and we are going to be reading A History of Wild Places by Shay Earnshaw. I cannot express my excitement to finally be reading a Shay Earnshaw book. I have heard nothing but amazing things about her atmosphere and her writing, and this book just sounds phenomenal. Like, it sounds like everything that I could want in a book, so I'm going into this one with high expectations, and I really hope they live up to that. In this book, we have our main character named Travis Wren, who has this unusual knack for finding missing people. He takes on the case of this author named Maggie St. James because she goes missing, and so he goes to this town named Pastoral, but then he ends up disappearing, and years later down the road, this guy named Theo finds his abandoned truck. Pastoral is like this interesting community where people think there is a disease that you can't come and go. You're either like part of the community or you're not, and so that just complicates things. This book just sounds really spooky, and I'm confident that she's gonna be able to come through with those vibes. I've never had a synopsis that has caught my interest so strongly, and yes, this is definitely going to be the first book probably that I pick up in the new year. The next book that I've been reading with my friend Ami is You've Reached Sam by Dustin Tao. I actually picked this up and started it on Thanksgiving break. Didn't get too far into it, but oh my word, I was emotional from page 1. This is just going to wreck me in ways that I didn't know possible. I typically don't pick up contemporary like romances, but this one just sounded really different from a lot of other books, because we start off with our main character Julie, who is absolutely devastated because her boyfriend Sam dies. Her whole life decisions were banking on him. They were going to go to college together, get an apartment together, and she is just really not doing well. She skips his funeral. Everyone's really worried about her, and one day she just wants to hear his voice one last time. She calls his phone number and he actually picks up. I don't know what that means, but I know this has a lot to do with life and death, and I know this is going to be really hard hitting for a lot of people that have lost loved ones, and I can't even imagine losing my partner or my husband, so this is just going to take on a whole different meaning for me, and I am ready for it to wreck me in the best way possible. Also, this book is absolutely stunning. Look at those flowers. Ugh, I love this book so much already. Another debut fantasy that has yet to be released this month is The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, coming out January 11th. I'm definitely planning on picking this one up as a birthday present to myself, but this cover is stunning and it's Asian inspired, so I know it's just gonna be so pretty, like pretty writing, pretty imagery. I cannot wait for this. We have the Celestial Emperor who exiled our main character's mother for stealing his elixir of immortality. Our main character actually grows up on the moon in this, and it sounds so cool. She goes on this adventure basically to save her mother by disguising herself and training with the Emperor's son. That trope always puts me on edge when people are disguising themselves as people that they aren't, and I'm just really intrigued by this one, and the fact that part of this takes place on a moon. There's mythology, it's a retelling. It just sounds like a gorgeous, stunning, and also a really unique read, and I'm just really excited to pick this one up, as I'm sure a lot of other people are as well. The next book that has been on my list pretty much since the day it came out is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. I have heard nothing but rave amazing reviews about this, and it sounds right up my alley. It sounds a little bit more magical realism than fantasy. This book starts out in Scotland, where we have three sisters who all disappear. They come back a month later and they're completely different. Their appearances change and they're just not the same people that they used to be. They grow up, they're trying to become these normal girls in high school, and then one of them actually goes missing and leaves a bunch of clues as to where she went. And so the dark, deep past of their memories that have been suppressed is calling them, and I don't know what in the world's gonna happen, but I think it's a little bit paranormal. And yeah, I just cannot believe I've waited this long to pick this up. It's supposed to be really dark and kind of like twisty, which I am just so here for. There's nothing better than snuggling up in bed with a creepy book when it's raining outside and some hot tea, and yes, I am stoked for this one, especially since it's not really that long either. Honestly, I just can't wait to finally see why people have been raving and ranting about this. The next book I have here is a fairly new release called All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody. I have been itching to get my hands on this one, and I finally gave in and bought it, and I cannot wait to dive into this. I have heard it is like the Hunger Games, but 10 times crazier. So in this book we have 7 families that compete in a bloody tournament that apparently they are trying to win over this wellspring of high magic that basically controls like the whole kingdom, and there's a lot of bloodshed, there's a lot of craziness that goes on in this. I don't know what to expect, and yeah, if it's anything like the Hunger Games, I hope this becomes a quick favorite. I mean, how can it not with this cover? Something about this just immediately pulled me in when I heard it was gonna come out. I hope that I'm right. I hope that I love this. I'm hoping all of these books honestly will be 5 stars this month. This next book has been on so many TBRs, probably for years now, and this month has to be the month that I read it because I need to know what this book is about. It is A Winter's Promise by Christelle Debos. First of all, the best book covers I have ever seen in my entire life, so there's that. But also, this just sounds like such unique magical system because we have our main character that can travel through mirrors, and she can also touch inanimate objects and know their history and the people related to them. And there's a lot of politics weaved into this, I believe a little sprinkle of romance, and this just sounds like a very different, unique book than I've ever heard from any other fantasy. It is going to be my biggest book this month, coming in at like 460 pages, so I should probably start on this one sooner rather than later, but I've just been itching for years to get to this. I have the second book. The third one is stunning. I think there's even a 4th book out at this point, so when I first bought this there was only the first 2, and I am just excited that if I love this I can just continue on with the rest of the 3 books. If you've read this, please let me know, because this is probably the book that I have the highest hopes for out of these because it's been sitting on my shelf for so long now. Seeing this book just makes me happy and want to give it a hug, and I hope that when I finish I will also want to give it a hug. I'm basically going to be saying this for every single book in this stack right now because I am that excited to read all of these, but truly, especially Vesper Teen, because I love Margaret Rogerson. She just knows how to pull off standalones so well by making a book compact but really packed full of magic and really good character development. In this book, our main character's job is kind of like a nun who helps people's dead spirits pass on to the next life. Artemisia defends her convent by awakening an ancient spirit bound to a saint's relic. It is a revenant, a malevolent being that threatens to possess her the moment she drops her guard. Wielding its extraordinary power almost consumes her, but death has come to Lorelei, and only a Vesper Teen, a priestess trained to wield a high relic, has any chance of stopping it. So this sounds, I don't know, really creepy and interesting that our main character kind of discovers that she has this secret power and has to stop these evil spirits. Honestly, I don't know what to expect from this one, but I've heard nothing but great reviews, and it's Margaret Rogerson, so of course I should have read this back in October when it came out, but here we are in January. I cannot with this cover, especially the inside, how it's so silvery, and oh, this is a stunning book. So I hope the story is just as good, but yeah, this is barely it's 380 pages, so it's a short fantasy, but one that I am very, very excited to get to. Since I do not have any mystery thrillers technically on my list for this month, I decided that I would try to find a manga mystery thriller and attempt reading that, because I don't think I've ever read a mystery thriller in manga form. And this one is called Invaded Break Broken. It is #1 in this series that I've had on my shelf for a little while now, but the back is what sold me. When I open my eyes, I find myself in an unfamiliar car, in an unfamiliar town, in front of the on-ramp to an unfamiliar highway. Before I can process any of this, I see the fiery explosions of multiple car crashes in the distance, and without thinking, I stomp on the accelerator and race toward the scene. I soon find that I've driven straight into hell at full speed with no brakes, just like everyone around me. In the midst of this insanity, I discover the corpse of a girl, and suddenly I know I am the brilliant detective, and I must solve the mystery of her death. This book sounds like it starts off at such a fast pace with a ton of high stakes, and I'm really interested to know why this guy has no recollection of this town and what's going on, but it sounds like a really cool like detective story as well. Well, I definitely have a good stack to keep me busy this January. All of these books I am stoked to get to. I am just so motivated this month to do a lot of reading in January, and I'm really happy that I picked a decent one out of the hat. I'm genuinely excited just to get back to my roots, which is fantasy. I feel like I have not talked about fantasy books in such a long time, and I cannot remember the last fantasy book I gave 5 stars, or even the last fantasy book that I rated, so I'm really happy that I'm finally realizing that I just need to get back to what I love reading. Let me know what books are at the top of your list to start off your year. I would love to know what you guys are reading. Thank you so much for supporting my channel and watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.